Hello, Acafellas and Murderesses, coming to you from Barden University on the mean streets of Chicago in Burbank, California. This is the Film versus Film podcast. I am your host, Quinn Boys. I have seen half a dozen musicals in my life, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host. He's got perfect pitch, Leonard Smith Jr. Leonard, what's up, man?
Oh, I'm so thankful I'm able to be here for this podcast. Shout out to Mama. You help out Mama. Mama helps you out. And here I am talking about movies with my guy, Quinn Boys, and I'm Leonard Smith Jr. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm excited for this one. This is something new for us.
Yes, you are referring to I spoiled it right up top. We are talking about best musicals this week. It's a prompt you and I have been staring down for a long time. We just waited for someone to have the balls to offer it to us. And the owner of those balls is our guest this week, your friend and mine, John Potter. John, what's up, man?
Hi. Willkommen.
Bienvenue. Welcome.
Welcome.
See, that's a musical reference.
That's a musical reference.
That?
I got it a little bit.
If you see, John and I have an easy back and forth. We have a tap dancing duo, or we're two parts of the same Chicago showgirl set. That's because John and I have an improv background. John and I have known each other for a number of years. We've been on some improv teams. We've been booed off every stage in Los Angeles. Okay,
every single one,
and a couple in Burbank.
And then they keep bringing us back. It's weird.
Yes,
but I just want to say that I also have an improv background, and
you
I also have been on a team with you, Quinn. So,
you have.
I'm just a little offended by that statement that we had a little two-man show running here with this podcast, but it's okay. John's coming.
I mean, I would say I was the original.
Yeah. You were my first Leonard.
Yeah.
I feel like Catherine Zeta-Jones, or what's her name, Valerie. I feel like I'm getting pushed out right now. I'm losing my light. And
you're being outshined by a new Roxy Hart.
Yeah, you're the Roxy.
So we're
the name on everybody's lips.
We're getting right down into our picks, but before we go that,
well, they already know. If you've listened to the last episode,
that's true. Leonard spoiled this in the last episode. So, but let's talk before we get to that about John. Why did you pick best musical? Why did you want us to submit our picks? Was it just to make fun of us, to see what we could come up with, or is it? I assume this is a genre that means a lot to you.
It's definitely a genre that means a lot to me. From my earliest memory of watching movies is watching musicals, and I have like an extensive movie musical collection. I was like a huge show tunes, like theater geek. But yeah, like ever since I remember, like when I was 5, my favorite movie was Mary Poppins, and then it was like Grease, and then I just kind of I grew up like. Your favorite
movie is always a musical.
It's always been a musical.
Yeah.
And like it always kind of changed as I grew older and more mature and everything. But I love them. I love reading about them, learning about them, watching them. So I sing show tunes literally every day in the shower. So I wanted to bring it to you, knowing you, Quinn. Leonard, I don't know as much, but like knowing you, Quinn, I was like, oh, this kid is like, I want to see what other people pick that aren't like, musical heads, musical buffs.
Yeah.
And kind of rip it apart.
Well, if you're not looking for a musical buff podcast, you've come to the right place. I'm going to ask you, Leonard. I'm going to ask you, Leonard, the same question. What's your relationship to musicals?
Oh, boy. I feel like I'm the antithesis to John's whole upbringing and situation with loving musicals. My relationship with musicals is I did theater as a kid and like middle school and high school. So, I did Les Mis. Like I was in Les Mis. I was like mistaken Jean Valjean because I'm black. And
wait, you were mistaken Jean Valjean?
Because Jean Valjean, the lead, the person who got cast as Jean Valjean was a black male. So if there's a point where they arrest the wrong guy thinking that he's Jean Valjean, so I was that guy.
I love that. Like I've seen Les Mis, but I love that. Like it's like who are you playing, Leonard? I'm not Jean Valjean. Oh, who are you playing?
The guy.
That's it.
I'm not Jean Valjean.
That's like an Abbott and Costello.
Yeah. So I just played like a lot of side roles. I really loved acting and doing theater, but I'm still self-conscious about singing. I think I can't sing. People try to tell me I can sing, but I just don't like singing. It's like I just am bad at it. So therefore, why would I go up and be bad at singing on stage? So I always was self-conscious about it. We also were like, my high school in Virginia before I moved to Atlanta, we had the #1 theater program in the state, and we were the first when we did Les Mis. Was it? I think we were the third high school, maybe, or the first high school to do it with the spinning, whether the stage, like we had all like theater department program,
the Hamilton stage.
Where like, is it maybe it was Civil? We were the first high school to do like Civil War off Broadway, which isn't a big production, but we were like, we just had all these things. We're like, we're like known for doing this and that, and
whoa, I'm like impressed because
I did not expect
theater budget was like less than $5,000. So it sounds like you guys had like pyrotechnics.
Ours was 75,000 that we all raised ourselves.
Wow.
Like, so I was a part of the theater committee. I was really into theater, and then after my sophomore year, I moved to Atlanta, and that just all changed and went away. But so like, even like as a freshman, I got like a leading role in the Civil War because I was Black, and I played Frederick Douglass, but they gave my solos to someone else because I was like, I can't sing these solos. I was happy that they gave my solos away because I didn't want to sing the solos.
Would you just move your mouth and someone would like Cyrano de Bergerac for you, or what?
Yeah,
it was weird.
Like singing in the rain where you're like behind the curtain in the microphone.
It was stupid. But so like, I understand musicals and I understand why people love them, and I understand like the whole affinity for it, but it's never been my thing.
So okay, so that actually is enlightening, because I would have thought, shame on me, that you were like musicals got like you had no not a lot of exposure to them, but you did, and you were sort of just like not my.
And you have like a base knowledge of musicals. It sounds like if you can reference Les Mis with the best of them, I think that's at least something.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the basics. It's like Fiddler on the Roof and and things like that. That's what I know. The classic like high school, middle school theater productions, the bigger productions. And it never was my thing. And I never knock it. A lot of people try to knock them and knock it and stuff like that. And there's something for everyone, but it's never been my thing. As you will know by my movie choice. I struggled with this so hard because I didn't want to be like Quinn and just choose a movie and maybe pander towards the audience.
Yeah, you didn't want to be like me and pick
choosing a blockbuster musical. And I chose something that was near and dear that actually resonated with me and I actually thoroughly enjoyed. So
can I ask you not to spoil it yet? Can I ask you not to say what it is yet? Just because I want to hold that reveal.
Okay.
I think it's relevant.
I would argue, Leonard, you said that you're not a strong singer, but you don't like to sing in musicals, but I would say that musicals is the one place where you can be a meh singer and still be like a great performer, because it's all about like the character and the performance.
Yeah.
Like think of like Ethel Merman is like, her voice isn't like soothing. It's just like, it's like a character voice. So I feel like a musical is the one safe place where a bad singer can still be a star.
I'll tell you this. I hated the audition process because you have to sing alone kind of for the audition process. So I didn't like it, but I was in musicals. I would sing. I just never wanted solos.
Which is funny because I feel like you are not a guy who in comedically. And again, I'm just finding out on this podcast that you have an improv background and that you got all these other things. I feel like you're not a guy who shies away from you don't grab at the spotlight, but you're not a guy who shies away from the spotlight in his comedic life. So it's interesting to think of a Leonard who's like, no, go to the next person. I don't. But I think that's what singing is it's like the most vulnerable thing that we do to some people. I don't feel confident singing, but I've gotten more so. I was a theater kid in middle school. I never tried out even. My school did in the fall they do a play, and in the spring they do a musical. And so I tried out for the plays over the years. Never tried out for the musical. The highlight of my middle school play career was when I was cast as Willy Wonka in our rendition of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which they did the non-musical version because I guess they were going based off the book. So like the Oompa Loompas just talked, but I don't know, it may have been a mistake. But for me, I was like, I can really sink my teeth into it because I don't have to do come with me and whatever, pure imagination. So I'm with you. But I have I'm kind of upset that I have
Quinn.
sung karaoke, and I can do a rendition of Robin's "Call Your Boyfriend" that'll clear out the bar. But I've just, that's more of a confidence game. That's not a
Well,
song
that's
and
also
dance
funny
man
because I
thing.
love karaoke too. Like I love
Yeah.
doing karaoke.
Karaoke,
but-
I think there's the expectation that you're an amateur.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
even I know we're talking about High School Musicals, not High School Musical, although that would have been a better pick, Leonard. No, even though we're talking about musical, like I think there's an expectation even in like high school. It's like this should be good. Like I don't want to go up there and like screw it up, but or at least with karaoke, it's like if I just have the energy, people will kind of be on board. And like I've heard a lot of people that suck at karaoke, and my impression is not to throw things at them and boo. It's like okay, some people are bad, but it is a weird. I agree with you. That's kind of doesn't totally make sense. My grandmother though was a huge musical fan. Like that was like all the music that she had in her car was like the Annie soundtrack, or like I remember as a kid she'd like try to like she'd see a commercial for like Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and she'd be like, do you want me to buy that for you? And I'd be like, no thank you, grandma. Just like try to like, she was so sweet about it. And so I grew up with, I would say like, I'm certainly not as rich into having seen as many as John, I'm sure, but I've seen what I feel like are the classics while also having missed a few classics. But I've seen like Sound of Music, Mary Poppins, West Side Story, a lot of the older ones that we weren't about to pick because we typically stay pretty current on this podcast. But the movie that I did pick, I actually saw in a otherwise empty movie theater off of Route 22 in New Jersey with my mom and my grandmother. We were alone at this AMC watching a daytime showing of Chicago, which was my pick for you, the 2002 Catherine Zeta-Jones, Renee Zellweger, Richard Gere adaptation of I think it's set in the 20s, but it's a 70s.
Yeah, it's set in the 20s.
Musical,
it's set in the 20s, but the original Broadway musical came out in 1975.
Yeah, and I was 11 at the time, and I didn't know.
In 75?
I know. I was like,
Jesus. I mean,
Shush, John, shush, shush, shush. I was 11 when I saw this movie in 2002. Brag. And so I was, I didn't know anything about it. I was pre-pubescent at that point, I guess. But like, it's a very sexy
like a little risque
movie, and it's a weird movie to see alone with your mom and your grandma. Like it's. But yeah, I saw this movie. That was the first time I'd seen it, and I don't think I'm hurting my chances to say that was also the last time I saw that movie through. Like I sat down and watched the movie all the way through. I've seen clips of it since then.
So you didn't watch it in preparation for today?
Until I watched it in preparation for today. So, okay. But that's a gap of almost 20 years now where I saw it, and I think it, despite, me not rewatching it, there's however many reasons for that, but I enjoyed it at the time. And I remembered a lot more of it than I thought I would, because I think it's a really good movie. I guess we're not making arguments yet. I'll just say specifically what this movie's about for people unfamiliar. Renee Zellweger plays this wannabe showgirl in 1920s Chicago. Her name is Roxy Hart. She's been done dirty by this guy that she's seeing. She's stepping out on her husband because she thinks this guy is going to help her music career. He makes very clear to her that's not the case. And in a rage, actually he gets physical with her, but in a rage and retaliation, she shoots him dead. She gets sent to a women's prison where she meets Catherine Zeta-Jones's character, Velma
Kelly,
thank you. And they have a sort of rivalry. They're both kind of she's killed her sister. She's part of a sister act, which is no longer the case because she killed her sister because she was stepping out on her with her own husband. And so they kind of have a competitive rivalry. They're both sort of vying for the affections and the attention of Richard Gere, who plays Billy Flynn, this kind of showy lawyer who gets lady killers off. Let me rephrase that. He sets them free. He represents them. And really the plot, though, what I was struck by, what I didn't remember as much is like the movie's about an hour and 53 minutes. In fact, I think, Leonard, both of our movies have the same runtime.
Weird.
But it's a very, like, if you were to chop out the song and dance numbers entirely, it would probably be like a 50-minute movie or something. And I appreciate, and if you don't like musicals, maybe this is parts of where it starts to be tedious, but I really like pretty much all the song and dances, and that just drags out a lot of the plot. Like the plot moves quickly because really they're only breaking it up to like do these numbers, and the songs also move the story forward. And it just basically runs the length of her trial. She, spoiler alert, she gets set free, but it's really more so about like the crime, or is she guilty, or does she have remorse? She doesn't really. It's about fame, the fame monster. It's about Chicago and the kind of news media that's like, I think it's parallels to today. They're very interested in the next scandalous case, but once you're old news, and they've moved on to the next person. So I think the movie's about a lot of things, but really, if it was about nothing, I think it's an enjoyable musical with great like performances from Catherine Zeta-Jones and Richard Gere in particular. There's a great acting performance by Renee Zellweger. We'll talk about, I'm not sure if she's singing, John. I want to talk with you about that a little bit later, but we can just more generally mention now. Leonard, I know you've seen a lot of movies set in women's prisons. What did you think about this one? And then John, I want to hear obviously what you think about it, but I think I know what you think, John.
I'm going to lose the episode about what I'm about to say right now is I did not like this movie. Yeah, I didn't like it.
My jaw is on the floor, just for the listeners at home.
We'll add in.
I didn't like this movie. I didn't care about seeing like some white women get away with murder. I just didn't care.
Oh, you're so quick to go to race.
No, I just didn't care about seeing this woman get away with murder. And honestly, though, it was like, I think they did a really great job of presenting the movie, like the whole like.
Yeah, it's well directed, right? Like I feel like you have to from the like it's well made,
from reality into like, the like them actually being on stage and performing the numbers like maybe the way it was. I thought that did it. That was a good move on the directing part. So like as a musical, like presented in a movie form, I think they did a good job in that. But for me,
not your cup of tea.
I hated Roxy. I just didn't like Roxy. Man. I didn't like her. And
yeah,
the lawyer was also they're all just maybe I'm like trying to be on too much of a moral high ground or whatever, but like it was just the story didn't interest me enough for me to like really be about it.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate you, I think, pulling your punches a little bit from when I stepped in here to record today, Leonard, and you were like, this fucking movie. So John, what did you think about this movie? What's your relationship to the movie too? Like, I understand, have you seen it on Broadway, but like the movie itself, everything, the Chicago, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, that's a big question. I actually have, I was talking to my
about
boyfriend.
The city too, just like
the city.
You have any
I love the
places
city.
to eat, deep dish pizza?
Yeah, I love the city. I actually wanted to go to college in Chicago, and I went to Minneapolis instead. But
same thing.
I actually applied to go to the same theater program that John C. Reilly graduated from in Chicago, who was also in this movie. I didn't get in, so fuck that. But no, I actually was talking to my boyfriend Taylor about this, and I feel like I know the show very well, but I've actually never seen a like live stage production of it. So I guess my first intro to it was the movie. But I love this movie. And there's so much about it that I love, but it's also just like for me as a musical theater junkie, I love like Candor and Ebb, who wrote the like songs and everything, the music and lyrics.
The book,
and I love,
as they say in the
the book is the script, and then the music and lyrics is that. But I love Candor and Ebb. I love the original Broadway production was like Bob Fosse, and I like love Bob Fosse, and I love that all that jazz. But I just love the musical itself. And then I like, kind of like Leonard was touching on, I think it's one of those movies that is a beautiful use of film for a musical, because like there's so many musicals, like let's even say like Grease, that Grease is not a good example. Let's say like Sound of Music, even, where like people, like the nuns will just start singing out of nowhere.
Yes.
And it kind of is just them singing in a courtyard. Whereas like this, they use the medium of film to their advantage. And every time, and it is a vaudevillian like inspired musical, but every time that's singing, it's like the musical in Roxy's head, and it like lifts out of reality into fantasy, which I think is like something that, to make a musical translate onto screen, something that kind of like needs to happen. Like the songs either need to be a fantasy or in performance, like the opening number of Chicago's All That Jazz, and she's like literally on stage performing it. So that's, I mean, it's just, and the cinematography is like beautiful, like the acting is beautiful. the singing, the dancing, I mean, the choreography, like it's all good. Like it's just like a joy to watch. And
it is a joy to watch. Yes.
I recently actually went just this summer, went to a drive-in movie of it at like near the Greek Theater in Griffith Park. So
did people get on top of their cars and start like tap dancing along? Was it a
No,
La La Land situation?
Unfortunately, no, you weren't allowed to leave your car unless you had to go to the bathroom. You know, COVID times being what they are, but it was great. And it was probably like the first time I had seen the movie in like probably, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years. So it was like, oh man, I just like, you forget how I forgot how much I really loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love the movie. And
that's great. No, that's great. That's exactly what I wanted to know. And I feel like I had
I feel like you may have already known this before.
No, I didn't. Did John? Be honest. Have we ever talked about the movie Chicago? I know you like musicals, but
right.
Like,
and
I was like, that's what I was
about the movie Chicago? I was like, is he pandering to me because is he gay baiting me because he knows that I love this movie and I love Candor and Ebb and I love Fosse? I think Quinn knows that I love musicals and I have a musical knowledge, but I can't say that I've ever had a conversation where I'm like, Quinn, Chicago is like one of my favorite like top 25 movies I've ever seen. Like I've never had that conversation with you, but
Leonard, I know I'm making you hold back on yours more, and we'll get to your pick. But I saw your face when John mentioned Grease, just in passing. Did you have a moment where you forgot that Grease was a movie that you'd seen that you could have submitted or something? Like, what was that reason for that look that you gave?
Well, right now, because I really struggle with my pick, and I was trying to find something, and I was just trying to be like, I didn't want to try to pander or choose something that I'd never really loved watching.
Pander. I'm just picking the appropriate movie for the problem. Don't let this narrative take hold. Okay, I'm pandering to you.
First of all, hold on.
I am curious to know what other movies you guys considered. So
hold on. I didn't say you were pandering when I said I didn't want to be pandering.
Okay. Well, you weren't.
And choose a movie that I really didn't feel like was something that I really loved. And while John was sitting there talking about the aspects of like presenting a media form, I realized there is a couple. When you said something about Willy Wonka, I was like, damn, could I have chosen Willy Wonka? Is that a musical?
I think so.
That's a movie I love. Like I love that movie. And like, and I know all the songs word for word. Like that is, I remember I went to this screening like at Piedmont Park in Atlanta, and we were watching it. And like, I remember these girls were like, thought it was weird that I knew all the words to the song and was singing along with it. And I was just like, what? This is, how could you not? It's fucking Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Anyways, but another movie that I just remembered.
It was weird. You were just singing Cheer Up Charlie, and crying. It was a little bit odd.
While crying and like using your vat of laundry.
I don't know if that was laundry or
a giant spoon.
Oh God, that house had to smell so bad. No, was this movie, which I feel like is kind of perfect for our podcast and what we represent, is the movie Blind Spotting, which is a really dope movie that the star of Hamilton, not Lin-Manuel, the guy who plays Alexander Hamilton, the black guy. Who's the black guy that plays Hamilton?
Hamilton is played by Lin-Manuel, but I think he plays Thomas Jefferson. You are thinking of the actor.
Oh, Daveed Diggs?
Yes. He did the movie 3 years ago called Blind Spotting. Is that a musical? It's actually is a musical. They rap the whole time, but it's presented. It's a very interesting movie. It's like this dude, he's on his last day of parole and he's about to like be off of parole and like be a regular citizen. And like, cause he could like go to jail for like 5 years or something. And on his last, like the night before his last day, he's out like jogging and he sees a cop murder this guy. And he just like runs off and like this whole thing, it's basically like his last, I think it's like the last 2 or 3 days before he's like off of parole. He sees this and it's like him dealing with that and like dealing with the pressure and like dealing with like his old friends and trying to create this new life. It's a pretty dope movie.
I feel bad that I have never heard or seen this movie.
I've heard of it,
it's
but
for
I
sure
like
it's for sure was marketed, I feel like, to black people. It's like set in Oakland. It's like a really dope movie. Y'all should check it out. And I'm kind of mad that I didn't pick that, so y'all could have watched it.
Yeah. Because when I hear Blind Spot, I'm like, is that drama on NBC about that girl with the disappearing tattoos?
Tattoos disappear?
I don't know. So I never watched it.
That
John
sounds
Potter
right.
disappeared as a viewer.
But I did not
so you
choose
picked,
that movie.
you didn't. But and then one last thing I'm going to ask you to do before you talk about the movie you picked, because you pivoted, you changed picks. You initially picked what I thought was a more appropriate movie. Do you remember what you picked first?
What was it? What was the first one I picked, Quinn?
It was
He doesn't remember. You guys don't remember?
John, you tell us.
You had originally picked the 2018 version of A Star is Born, starring Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper.
That's what I chose because I
blanked on it after I said
movie.
La La Land. I was like, no, it's recent, but it wasn't La La Land.
I love A Star is Born. Like, I love that movie so goddamn much. And I legitimately, I haven't listened to it in a while, but like the next 6 months, I just listen to that soundtrack all the time. It would just be like crying and just like
I still listen to it. I have the vinyl. Like, I literally listened to it like last week. I am also wearing, for the viewers at home, I am wearing a Gaga or Chromatica sweatshirt in, mourning that you changed your pick. Solidarity with Gaga.
I think you messed up not choosing that, but I honestly felt like maybe for my personal psyche, I didn't need to watch that movie right now. I was just like, I want to choose something a little bit more upbeat than this depressing movie.
So you prioritize your mental health over the podcast, and that's why I'm going to try to stick you with a loss, Leonard, because you're looking out for yourself. What did you pick?
I fucking chose Pitch Perfect. And I'm kind of mad at myself. I should have chose Pitch Perfect too, because it's so much more fun and it's just like more songs and just like more silly. I really like that one. He's like, John's like, no. But I chose Pitch Perfect, which I don't know if it's considered a musical, but they sing throughout the whole entire goddamn movie. So it's about Anna Kendrick's character's name is Becca. She is a reluctant college freshman. She wants to be a DJ. She wants to move to LA and be a producer and make music. But her dad, who is a professor at I can't remember the name of the college.
University.
Barton University.
Barton University, where she has free tuition, and her dad's like, listen, you're going to college. That's what we're doing. And he wants her to have the college experience and make friends. She's a loner. And then she's not really, really taking on the full college experience. So he's like, all right, listen, if you join a club and try to really have the true college experience after your freshman year, you can go to LA. So she's finally motivated to do something, and she ends up joining an a cappella group, the Barton
Bellas.
The Barton Bellas. And they were hot stuff. They've never won it, the a cappella championship, and now that's kind of like a ragtag group of Bellas, and there's new representation. They're inclusive now, and it's just the process of them trying to win the a cappella championship with her, and she's the first person, I guess, to discover mashups, and
she uses her skills as a DJ to unlock the acapella skeleton key that unlocks.
They do like old, outdated.
They do a
songs.
bunch of '80s songs.
Yeah,
too. Yeah, they never like change their set. Yeah.
So she brings this fresh new vibe, and they have new people and the new energy, and it's her having to deal with the head Bella, who is stuck to the old, outdated ways and isn't hip to what's really happening, and it's just a really fun, silly movie.
And there's also the rivalry with the male group, like the men's
the
choir.
troublemakers. There's some troublemakers. They're not allowed to fornicate with any of the troublemakers. And there's this big rivalry where they win, and Adam Devine is the lead. Was he really singing?
Or Divine? Is it Divine?
Is it Devine?
I don't know.
I always said Devine, but I should know.
Okay, good. So there's someone else on my side.
I think it's Devine. It's Devine. We're going with that.
Maybe it's Divine.
And, so that was fun, just like seeing also UCB alum Jacob Wysocki's in this.
That was
which
fun.
I didn't realize that because I hadn't really watched. I don't know. It was just funny. I was like, oh shit, that's Jacob. And so it's a fun comedy movie. Also, begrudgingly she falls in love with this dude who's trying to holler at her the entire movie, and
he happens to be in the Troublemakers, and like they have this little like will they won't they. Yeah,
that dude played by Skylar Astin, who he's have a Broadway career, John, or is he just
so he was in the original Broadway cast of Spring Awakening.
Okay, he to me this is the non-musical aficionado look. He just always to me looks like a younger Dane Cook, and I think someone else has pointed that out to him before.
Wow,
Be,
I can
right?
kind of see
Do you see it?
Yeah,
He does
absolutely.
it for real. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty funny.
He looks like Dane Cook. And also, you didn't mention Leonard, but just to round out the cast, Rebel Wilson. This was, I feel like, the movie that kind of launched Rebel Wilson. She had been in Bridesmaids, but she has like a bit part, and this movie was like Fat Amy is her character name. Anna Kendrick, you said Brittany Snow, who I feel like was like a Disney Channel person or something.
Well, she was like on that show American Dreams or something on like ABC. With like
she's in Hairspray.
She was a teen in Hairspray. Right? Yeah.
And, also, Elizabeth Banks and John Michael Higgins were just hilarious. Like
as the announcer,
they filled the role. I feel like it's like lifted almost entirely. Not that Dodgeball created it, but like the two announcers in Dodgeball that are just like weirdos
or like
that narrate the action.
Referencing John Michael Higgins, like the announcers in Best in Show that are like, Fred Willard is like the dumb announcer guy. Yeah.
Also, Dear Evan Hansen is in this movie.
Yes, Ben Platt is like, it's like his breakout thing. I mean, he had done a bunch of like theater when it's like growing up, but it was like his breakout role that then
the magician roommate Leonard, in case you're wondering.
Yes, and it was like his breakout role, and then he got from that he was like a replacement in the Book of Mormon on Broadway, and then he got Dear Evan Hansen, and now he's like this huge celebrity.
It's just funny that the current controversy about Dear Evan Hansen is that Ben Platt is a gentleman in his late 20s. He's not that old, but he doesn't look like a high schooler, which is what the character in Dear Evan Hansen is. And so like they're like tinkering with maybe digitally de-aging him and blah blah blah. But in this movie, Pitch Perfect, I think he's only like 19 years old or something.
Yeah, he looks like a high schooler.
Comes out.
He looks pretty young,
and he looks. If only they had him then, they could have shot Dear Evan Hansen when he looked like.
It's like so much bullshit because like.
Who cares?
People have been in their 30s playing teenagers for decades.
On the CW,
like to reference Grease, like Rizzo, like Stockard Channing was 30 when Grease came out. Like, it's fine.
I feel like the people that are making noise about it are not actually interested in seeing Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah.
And they're just being loud on the internet.
Wait a second. I have a quick question though. Did he write Dear Evan Hansen or
no? He
plays Dear Evan Hansen.
Okay. See, somebody told me
the writers are Pasek and Paul, who also wrote like La La Land and The Greatest Showman.
Okay.
That's an obvious one. Yeah, we should talk more about the movies that we picked, but did La La Land cross your mind at all, Leonard? Or
what were your other ones that you were juggling besides Blind Spotting?
Because I thought about it.
I never saw La La Land.
Okay. We tend to I had written
my
down,
problem was I haven't seen enough
musical.
musical movies, so it was like my choice was very limited, and then I just wanted to be really true to myself of like what I really liked, and I probably should have gone with The Star Is Born, but I was like, this is too depressing.
You did go with The Star Is Born, then
and then I changed it, and it's also super long, and it was just like we were doing episodes back to back, and I was just like I had to watch 3 movies, and yeah,
and
but like, no, I'm happy with Pitch Perfect. Pitch Perfect was fun. It's a fun movie. I don't think it's gonna help me win this episode, but it's a very fun movie.
I thought about Les Miserables, the Hugh Jackman version, but then I remembered that Russell Crowe, and it's like I don't want to get like ticky tacky on. There's probably John is familiar with a better version of this story, be it like the actual stage play or whatever. Like what I was prioritizing was like. Because Broadway faithful, like if the movie is good to like you and me who don't go and see a lot of Broadway shows, Leonard, we'd be like, yeah, that's the version of it. But I think a version, I haven't seen this, but I remember the controversy around it, such as it was that I think in the mid 2000s they made a movie version of Rent, and people were upset about like songs that were left out, or I don't know, John, you could maybe speak to it better than me, but like. They didn't like this character playing something or whatever, and there was controversy. So it's like you can pick it's like this is a musical. I know it's popular, but you can pick a version where people are like, yeah, but I don't want to watch the movie of Rent. I'd rather watch this or something, So Chicago, I remember, and we'll get into awards, stats, all that stuff. I just remember it being successful. And when I rewatched it, I was like reaffirmed in my choice because I was like, yeah, this is quite good. And Leonard is a literalist, John, if that's even a term. When I gave Leonard Homeward Bound, almost a year ago now, I think, to watch. I thought Leonard when he told me it was bullshit, it was because of the story about the dog that gets lost and the dogs have to find the home, and he would find it too sentimental. And when we sat down to record the podcast, Leonard said, how are the dogs communicating? Are they talking? Or is it
wait, that's what you had a problem with?
Is it telepathy? Are they just beaming their thoughts into each other's brains? So when you said about Chicago, I thought Leonard would appreciate the fact that music in the movie, unless it's on the stage, like you said, the musical scenes in the movie, it's like metaphor, it's like it's happening in someone's head. They cut to a stage, but we know that's not. So I thought Leonard would appreciate that, because if everyone started singing and dancing in the courtroom, that Leonard would be like, well, wait a minute. Do they know they're singing? Why are they singing? Did they choreograph this together? Like all the BS people usually say.
Wait. If you were listening earlier in the podcast, I said I did appreciate how they cut away to the stage performance.
Okay.
So I did appreciate that part. The literalist part of me was like, I also hated John C. Reilly's character. He was just so dumb. I just hated
John C. Reilly's character.
I
still think of him as Mr. Cellophane.
I just feel so bad for him. And I'm
he's cucked.
Dummy. You're just
he's
so
just a
dumb.
sweet doof.
Yeah.
If you need someone to play that character, there is like truly no one else to play that character than John C. Reilly.
The best casting probably in the like everyone in the movie is good, but that is my like favorite casting of that film.
The casting was good. Like, I mean, Renee Zellweger did a great job because I hated her character. Like, I mean, she was just.
She's not really redeemable as a character, which is like fine. Like she's a murderer. She's like out for her own success. Like it's like kind of like what her deal is.
Yeah, there's no justice in this movie, which I really appreciate. It's not moralizing at all.
I kind of was happy at the end where like things weren't working out for her, and I was like, all right, good. This is the payoff. She doesn't get her like come up like she doesn't get her like the pot of gold at the end after all this, and then her and Valerie have the two women show. I'm just like, God damn it.
I'll just while we're talking about Renee Zellweger, we're not looking to Renee Zellweger. Much has been made about like she went away for a while, then she came back. She won an Oscar. She's doing well, but Renee Zellweger, this was like the peak of her first go round at stardom, I guess we should say. Like before, when she was like really in the
her prime, like her
prime.
She was like the it girl of like this time, like the late 90s, early 2000s.
And I think what comes with that is a lot of scrutiny, and a lot has been made, and we're not making it, but a lot has been made about like her face sometimes looks a little like puffy, or her lips are kind of pouty.
Okay. This is a blind spot for me. I don't know anything about Renee Zellweger.
There were a lot of Renee Zellweger impressions at the time.
Where what was her second
impression was you kind of squint and you kind of push out.
She has like a flat face, and like her eyes are kind of squinty, and they kind of like so there's been a lot of that about her face, and then she got some like work done, and it kind of like more recently she got some work done, and it kind of completely made her look like a different person, but somehow it's kind of the work has relaxed back, and she kind of looks more like herself again. And there's always been scrutiny about her weight, because she'll like balloon up for like Bridget Jones's Diary, and then she'll be like a beanpole like she's in Chicago.
Very thin in this,
and it's like there's been a lot of just like scrutiny about her looks, which is just kind of like bullshit, because like no one's giving scrutiny to like fucking Richard Gere.
And I only bring it up to say, well, they are, but it's only if you're a pet owner.
Which I'm not, so therefore I don't listen.
Same, me neither. So
what was her I bring it up to say is that I think she actually has like the perfect 1920s look. I feel like whatever she looks like a flapper. Like that's kind of the
it's not just the hair, but it's like her body type in that movie too, is she's like completely flat and like as thin as my pinky. Like that's what I think of as like a 1920s flapper.
Yeah, people were hungry in the 20s,
But you're asking her Renaissance. Her Renaissance was she won an Oscar for playing Judy Garland in the Judy biopic, and now she's like going to be in this like limited series on NBC called The Thing About Pam, where she plays like this like Karen that like murdered her husband and friend or something. And anyway,
who's also in this movie that kind of threw me for a loop, especially because she has no singing parts and very few lines, is there's a like kind of inexplicable Lucy Liu cameo in the middle of this movie, which I appreciate.
There's a lot of little cameos.
I always like seeing Lucy Liu,
which is fun.
But you expect to see more of that character when you see Lucy Liu, and she's really just in the movie for 2 minutes, and then you never see her
threw me
again.
off so hard. I was like, oh, they're adding a third character to the mix. Like, also, I'm not gonna lie, she looked very hot when they were breaking her into the prison. God damn, Lucy.
This was prime Lucy Liu.
It's supposed to, because she's supposed to like be the new up and coming murderess, right? And then that's why Roxy has to like fake a pregnancy to,
she
get back in the spotlight
real quick.
But there's a lot of little cameos which also just like tickles my fancy, like the Lucy Liu cameo. Like Maya is in it in the Cell Block Tango, and then original Broadway cast. She was originally the original Belle McKelly in Broadway. Chita Rivera is in it for like one scene when Roxy Renee Zellweger comes into the women's prison right at the beginning. And I'm just like, I don't know, I just like love these little moments of like, oh, look at Cheetah Rivera.
Yeah, and Renee Zellweger, she's bringing it. I think she's very convincing Roxy, but I think the lion's share of the attention when this movie came out. Richard Gere is very good. John C. Reilly we've talked about, but Catherine Zeta-Jones as Velma, like, who knew that she could
Steals
do
the
that?
show.
Like,
Right.
I don't think she had a reputation as like a song and dance person before then, but she kills it, right? I mean, I don't know. That's my impression, John. What is that?
All these actors were actually singing in the movies.
Yes.
Where they
So
were the ones
there's
who were
actually
singing?
credits at the end of the movie, like towards the end of the credits, that says like all of Catherine Zeta-Jones' songs were sung by Catherine Zeta-Jones. Like all of Richard Gere's songs were sung by Richard Gere, and it like literally like confirms they all did their own singing, which is
Renee
another reason I
Zellweger?
love this movie. Is like Renee Zellweger did all of her own singing.
Really?
But, like,
That's solo. Sue, I thought there was like rumor that she doesn't sing in this, but I don't know. I just thought that maybe it sounded like she might have been dubbed for her like big number where she's like with Roxy and Lights, but maybe I have that wrong.
No,
I'm just
it's
spreading
like fully
rumors.
her, and like she also sings the songs in the Judy movie, so it's like she can definitely
Okay.
like do it.
Okay.
But I think that's another reason I like it is like because everyone is doing their own vocal work. They're not like, you know what I mean? It's not like stunt casting and then having someone else sing for them is like, that's another reason why
That makes me respect it a lot more.
Yeah.
Just I assumed that they weren't singing, and I wasn't. I saw that Catherine Zeta-Jones won the Best Supporting Actress for this, and at first, I mean, when I saw that, I was like, how? Like, how did that happen? But now, okay.
She's also quite an impressive
Catherine
dancer
Zeta-Jones,
in the movie.
Yes, she did all of her own dancing, and that's why she insisted to have her like short haircut in the movie, because she didn't want people to think that like she had a dance double and like the hair was like blocking her face.
Yeah.
So she did all of her own singing and all of her own dancing. I just think it's like so impressive. And
she murdered a guy.
And she literally
just to
she's
like
I
get
have to
into
take someone
character.
out.
Yeah.
I'm a method. Yeah.
Yeah.
Method actor. So, but
Wasn't doing anything wrong. She just bumped into him.
Yeah. But and I guess I'm not super familiar with her like other musical career, except I know like a few years later in the like early 2010s, she was in a Broadway revival of A Little Night Music, like on Broadway. So it's like she definitely has done other musical stuff since then, but I don't know about her like singing and dancing career prior to this film so much.
Leonard, have you seen that one?
No.
Okay. Just making sure.
What, A Little Night Music?
Yeah.
I don't think there's
Leonard
a movie
missed
version
that
of it, but there's like that famous song, Send in the Clowns. Anyway. Anyway.
Leonard, you're telling me you don't like John C. Reilly, but you're saying that this movie came out in 2002, which for those of us who've listened to other episodes may know this was prime emo Leonard. And you can't get behind the lyrics of Mr. Cellophane. You look right through me, you walk right by me, you don't even know I'm there. That didn't
Here's my issue. They all did such great jobs in these roles and acting that I hate the characters. Like for me, it was all about the story. That was my issue. I think I was going in like, all right, I'm not a musical person, so I still want to be able to enjoy this as a movie as a whole. And the numbers were cool and everything. And I just didn't like the story. The story I didn't like. I just didn't like, and obviously that is a real thing, and they used him, and he is a very key part of the story, that she has a doofus husband and she's cheating on him. And
the scene where he's gonna like take the fall for shooting the guy, and then he finds out in real time that actually, oh, this is the guy who sold us our furniture. Like, I love that he can't like keep the act together.
So mad.
She's stepping out on me. Like,
he's so mad. But no, I think I just felt I felt bad for him, and I was just mad that he was just like letting himself be used by Roxy, because he was like, oh, she's cheating on me, and then he kept coming back. He kept coming back to let her.
When she tells him at the end of the court thing, it's like, "There's no baby," and it's just like, this poor guy. I think that's the last time you see him. That's why it's
like, bitch, be self-aware. You are Mrs. Cellophane, so stop being motherfucking Mrs. Cellophane and change your goddamn self.
Well, they should have given you a musical number where you pumped him up or something.
There you go.
But I get it, Leonard. You couldn't connect with this movie about white ladies that are going to get away with murder. So tell us about the movie about the white lady that went to college for free and then became a DJ in Los Angeles that resonated with you so much.
I think I like the fun of it all, the goofiness. Obviously, her character is kind of annoying to me too. Becca is pretty annoying.
She is kind of like the least likable character in the movie.
Yeah, she's the least likable character, especially
no character who aspires to be a DJ is ever an interesting character.
I really
Just
did
do
like
it
the
or
way she
don't.
treated Skylar Austin. But I did like his character because he was like, listen, if we're gonna be fucking adults about this, he's like when she tried to come back to him, he's like, nah, I'm not fucking coming back to you. Like when you're ready to grow up and like face your actual issues, come holler at me. And I was like, hell yeah, dog. That's how you're supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? But no, it was, this, like I said, was a tough choice for me. I probably should have stuck with Star Is Born because I just that
Never has there been
the
so much
reason why I love
second-guessing of
that
the
movie.
pick on the podcast in
I
real
know
time.
because the
I love
story
that I
is
brought
so
the
good.
challenge.
The story is so good. You
Is
know
it?
what I'm saying? That's what I love about The Star Is Born. Like
Oh,
the
Star Is Born
music is
story so
great
good.
and the story is just amazing.
Yeah.
Pitch
Let's talk about
Perfect.
the
The
movie you
reason
didn't
why
pick.
I like Pitch Perfect though is because it's just fun. It's goofy. It's fun, and I like the acapella mashup aspect. The reason why I also really like Pitch Perfect is because the songs are actual songs from like pop culture and stuff. So it's like songs that I know and that like I'm like I can like when they were doing the acapella off, the aka off or whatever the fuck that was in the swimming pool. Like I was sitting there like snapping my fingers, like singing along when they were doing it. So it's like it is presented in such a goofy way, but I feel like that kind of like theater kid in me, like the performer in me, is like it's more fun because it's the music I can connect to more.
That's fair. I can see it from that angle. I understand that. And like, well, I don't know actually, John, what because this is a movie that came out when we were all, I assume we saw this in theaters. I think we all remember it being big. It inspired 2 sequels. Probably one of the weirder trilogies of all time. There's 3 of these movies.
I didn't see this in theaters.
I haven't seen any of the other 2 either.
My roommate was like, this movie's great. You have to watch these. And then I watched them and I was like, okay, there.
But John, as a musical guy, or just as a lover of, movies and stuff like that, what's your thoughts on this movie? I don't think we've had you talk about it yet.
So thanks for asking, because Leonard, I do like this pick because I love this movie too. I really do. I love this movie so much that like it was basically like all I watched in like the year of 2013. It was actually the only movie that I like ripped the DVD and saved it onto my laptop so I could like watch it when I wasn't connected to the internet. Like, so, you know what I mean? I watched it all the time. I love it. I think it's so funny. I think like all the performances are so good across the board, which I think why there are so many like breakout actors from it. Like, and it's so funny that you mentioned like Jake Wysocki, because I remember like this came out in 2000, like late October, like 2012. October 2012.
Yeah.
I moved to LA like September 2013. So after like watching this movie for like all of the year leading up to my move here. And I remember going to a UCB show and seeing Jacob Wysocki and being so starstruck that an actor from Pitch Perfect was like in the same room as me. But I love it. Yeah, I love this movie so much. The whole like riff off thing is probably one of my favorite scenes as well. And I remember when I started taking improv classes at UCB, there's the game Hotspot, and I'm like, oh my god, this is just like the riff off from Pitch Perfect. And it was like my favorite improv game. Like I was all about this movie. I loved Ben Platt. I loved Anna Camp. I loved Rebel. I mean, I loved Skylar Astin. I mean, I was just in love with this whole, like from top to bottom. Is it a musical? Maybe. It's kind of like a comedy with music, and I don't know, like the whole, like you were saying, like, oh, they're singing like contemporary pop songs, and I like, so it is kind of like this jukebox musical in a sense. And I like that they try to like make it cool by like the mashups and everything. So like I mean I do love this movie. I just I just don't know if I would categorize it as a musical.
Well, maybe Leonard will change your mind over the course of this argument. I think step 1 for Leonard is to stop talking up A Star Is Born, because that was the pick you abandoned. But
man, when you presented those 2 options initially, I was like, this is going to be tough.
You had a Sophie's Choice.
And I still like Pitch Perfect. And I can't even tell you how many times I've watched just like clips of the movie and like try to do the choreography like at the end and everything. Anyway.
We'll wait for final arguments before you have to come down one way or the other, John. But I'll say, I'll just throw in for Pitch Perfect. I am not. I like musicals. I agree with you, John. Like, I'm not sure if I would even call. Say what you say?
You said I like musicals, and I immediately say be honest, because I don't know if I believe that.
No, well, I was gonna say I like them, but it's also like like I enjoy a good romantic comedy, but I don't see every romantic comedy. You know what I mean? Like I need to have like some sort of confident, like I need to hear from someone that something is good. I'm not going to just see it because it's out.
When's the last time you chose to watch a musical on your own?
In theaters, probably like again. Well, if we're counting A Star Is Born, then
That
right? I mean, La La Land. I don't know. I saw those in theaters.
Okay. La La Land
Like,
counts, right?
like-
Doesn't La La Land count?
yeah, La
What?
La Land's a musical. But
I didn't
wasn't
see
that before
Cats. They don't make that many musicals in theaters. What am I forgetting?
do.
I mean,
They
like at home
They've
too.
literally
Like
come out with so many musicals this year. There's been In the Heights,
In the
Dear Evan
Heights.
Hansen. The
In the Heights.
everyone's
I saw In the
talking
Heights in
about
theaters.
Jamie.
Okay, we can stop there. I saw In the Heights. I saw In the Heights.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let it go.
And I liked it. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying I don't rush out to see all of them. And in my mind, I don't really categorize Pitch Perfect as a musical. I'm not saying that to come after you yet or anything, Leonard. But I will say, I also like movies about theater kids. I kind of was one, but I was like the theater kid that wasn't like, I was like, I was apart. I was like straddling two worlds because none of my friends were, but I like to do like the play. So I understand that world, but like I find movies and things about that are very rarely interesting to me. But even my cynical skepticism about theater kids, whatever, I'm like Anna Kendrick in this movie. That's me. I'm Becca. I just want to be a DJ and fuck off to Los Angeles. But
yeah,
that scene where she's in the shower and she's just singing Bulletproof, and then Brittany Snow joins in and they do it together, and they harmonize. That scene is kind of cool. Like it's the lamest thing, and yet when I'm watching it, I'm like, I'm kind of vibing with this. Like I get it. So I'm saying what we're all saying, but I understand where you're coming from. I get like the fun element. There are other parts of this movie I find less fun. Like I just like the competition element of it. I actually feel like these movies are the same length of time. Pitch Perfect feels longer. I feel like the Pitch Perfect
really,
maybe because of the comedy part. Like you could probably lose 10 minutes of Pitch Perfect, and yeah, I don't know. That's just me, but I think there's one too many rounds. Like Adam Devine leaves the movie before it's over. He's just like, "Hey, I just got this thing."
I feel like all the rounds are fun, and I feel like they kind of make them quick too. Like at least the first, like the middle one is like super fast, where it's just like she fucks, where she like changes and does the first mashup thing and she gets kicked out. Like that was just like a quick one. That wasn't super long.
Yeah, I think it's Rule of Threes, Quinn. They had like the first initial one, then the one that they're like in the middle that they're kind of like Anna Kendrick's like messing with shit, and then the last one where they've completely changed.
I'm not necessarily saying you remove one of those scenes. I'm just saying those scenes didn't like. Maybe it's the time between them. I don't know. That whole thing. Yeah, it is the time between them, because there's that scene where they like come back and they're rolling around and vomit. And I was like, let's just get to the.
I just want to speak on the part where you're talking about how like you were kind of like riding the line on like, theater and like being on both sides. And I was in that same space. And the part where she was singing in the shower, I also had that. It's just weird being such a like skeptical, cynical person and like watching these movies, and it's that weird feeling of being like, oh, this is like cool. It's like in my mind, I'm like, this is corny as fuck. This is so lame.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I actually like really liking this. It's like really sweet, and it's
both
like
things can be
nice.
true.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just interesting that you say. I was like, I know exactly how that feels.
I think I was that theater kid, and this movie, I'm like, it's target audience, obviously, but like the scene where they're singing like in the USA on the bus or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, this is like what we did on our buses to like competitive speaking, my speech meets, because like we would just like,
what is competitive
literally
speaking?
show tunes on the bus.
What's competitive speaking?
Like speech meets, like there's like categories, so like you'd prepare a speech or a script, not debate. We're not arguing. We're like writing a speech and then like presenting it. And then or you could do a script and you would like learn a script and then you would like.
I've never heard of this before.
Same.
Are you serious?
Where are you from? Wait, where were you doing this? Where did you live? Where'd you go?
My high school in Nebraska, but they have competitive speech meets are a nationwide.
You know why, Leonard? It's because Nebraska, they're like not sure like the baseline intelligence. So if you can speak, they like take you from town to town and you show other people.
I am not okay. I want the
now I have to ask you guys
in the Instagram to be like, if you were on speech team, show me the love, because I was very invested in competitive speaking.
This podcast feels like competitive speaking sometimes.
All right, I have to ask you something now, because this was something that was a thing at my high school, and I would do this with my theater friends. There's this thing called History Day. I don't know if you guys had it, where it was like each year it was a different like prompt or subject that you could either, there were different like categories. You could like make a diorama, you could make a speech, you could, or like a presentation. You could put on a one person like show, or you could do like a group sketch. Like you could write a like sketch or like a little play about the history thing. And me with my theater friends, we would write something and perform it, and like we won it, and like then won state and like went to nationals and shit like that. And we did it a couple years in a row. Did y'all ever do that? Did y'all ever participate in History Day?
No.
See, that was something that was like a thing in my school, and it was like a year long, like an annual competition for like different grade levels, like from like 8th grade to like senior year. So that is this funny how these high schools have these niche things that are like, we feel like, you feel like everybody does that, but I don't know. I'd never heard of that before. You know what I'm saying?
That's wild. Because like you have like tournaments like across the state, and like a bunch of high schools are there. So like I don't know, but maybe not in Atlanta. I don't know.
This is in Virginia, so this is before Atlanta did not have it. Atlanta didn't have shit.
Yeah, there's like all these categories that like people like, I'm gonna say these, and like speech kids are gonna be like, yeah, like extemporaneous, humorous interpretation, you know, informative speaking. There's like a bunch of different types of categories that you could compete in.
Interesting.
They have a section for sarcastic speech.
Well, I always performed in entertainment speaking, which actually is not a nationally recognized category, which is like rude,
controversial.
I know.
You seem like the Bella of your competitive speaking team.
The Bella?
The Becca. I'm sorry, the Becca. Because you're just throwing people on for a loop.
Maybe. I don't know. I would think I was probably more of like the Anna Camp, because I took it way seriously.
That you know what? That seems right, actually.
I'm trying to figure out what Bella I would be.
Yeah, let's all label ourselves Bellas.
Yeah, I'm definitely Anna Camp.
I mean, I'm horny, so I'm probably Cynthia, the black girl. You know, she's maybe not, or no, the other girl was also horny.
No, the horny one was
the horny one
Brittany,
was the
or Brittany Snow.
No, that wasn't Brittany Snow. It was the
Shelley,
the woman who referred to
Ashley.
her vagina as a he.
Oh, yes.
He's a hunter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the one that likes the E Network. Yeah.
I'm
or I'm Becca, because I'd be like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, I already claimed Becca. I already said that I had the difference of Becca.
If you're Becca, then I'm the horny one. Cool.
I guess if you're Becca, I guess I'm horny. It's very okay. So we talked about like, you said generally the scene. What's your favorite? Let's do for both movies. And I'm really be interested in hear Leonard's answer for Chicago. What's your favorite number? What's your favorite musical number? Whatever. I guess Pitch Perfect is tough because there's some matchups, but I said I'll go with the bulletproof scene in Pitch Perfect, because I kind of already talked about that. I
haven't chosen for either one. For Pitch Perfect, it's probably, it's the pool scene, the acapella off or whatever,
the riff off.
Any specific moment? I'm trying to think of that myself.
When she starts singing "No Diggity," where she's like rapping and nobody knows it, and then she starts singing with them, and then the rest of them know it, and then the man doesn't know it, and you're like, "Ha, you old basic ass." But no, that whole scene is just fun. Just to imagine, like, I mean, that's probably something like that has happened somewhere at some point in time, where like people really love. It's just funny to think about this world and like this being a real thing.
Where they're like, this is their Sharks and the Jets like face off, except instead of knives, they're just flinging voices at each other.
But also the music was just really fun and good. So it was cool, like just having it bounce back and forth. So that was fun. I really like that scene. And in Chicago, you know, I don't want to choose like the one song that a man did, but when Richard Gere does his number, when it's like the first Richard Gere number, and he's like tap dancing and shit. The tap dancing at the tap dance number, when he's like berating the other lawyer and he's like tapping.
Oh, like during the court scene.
Yeah, that's really cool. But like the first one, he's like, he's all about love, like
he cares about his love.
And then also maybe the the introduction of like the 6 women who like their little stories.
Cell Block
Cell Block
Tango.
Tango.
Cell Block
That's
Tango.
that's I think the number one with the book. Like that's the most famous. Oh, I guess All That Jazz.
That and All That Jazz. But All That Jazz has kind of just become like a standard that's like can be its own thing. But
what's yours, JP?
I would agree
What's yours for both?
For Pitch Perfect, I think it has to be the riff off scene. Like that, I just remember watching it for the first time and my mind was like, this is so cool. I love this so much. And I was like, I want this scene to go on for like 20 more minutes. Maybe cut, like Quinn said, cut 10 other minutes and add 10 minutes to this because I wanted to see them do more categories. It's definitely the riff off scene, probably followed by like the final like Bella's performance when they kind of like do their own new thing. And,
yeah, that was great. I also, for that final performance, I was like, did they get longer than everyone else? Because I feel like there's
yeah, everyone's saying one song and they saying 6.
Yeah, they're bogarting the mic at the end. There.
Sure.
Kind of,
but yeah, definitely the riff off. And then for Chicago, I was gonna say like it's so funny, like in this female driven movie with like a bunch of powerful women in these roles. My favorite song is the Billy Flynn song, They Both Reached for the Gun.
I was gonna be yes.
It's like it's maybe not the biggest like show number like Cell Block Tango, but it is like for me far and away like the best song.
I love the way that they represent it too, with like, and I imagine they're taking something from the stage version, but where they're all the marionettes, and then that's the beauty of the movie is that you can cut of doing it as a movie. The medium of being in the movies is you can have him playing the marionettes while also being like, but they also didn't dummy it up. Like Renee Zellweger is just pretending to be his marionette doll, but I love the like they both like the repetitive nature of it and the energy of that song.
Oh yes, they both. Oh yes, they both. Oh yes, they both. Yeah, it's.
And I'll just go with Cell Block Tango then, because I think it's between that or They Both Reach for the Gun. It's an incredibly sexy song, and I want to remind everyone again, I was in a movie theater just starting to realize that I liked women with my mom and my grandma and no one else watching this very horny movie being like
where they're in lingerie and they're also murdering people.
Yeah.
First 5 minutes, McNulty from The Wire and Renee Zellweger going at it hard. They do quick cuts. That was hot. Those were some hot, quick cuts.
Yeah.
And I was like, hold on. What's going on here?
Leonard, this is not a game I had planned. John, you cannot help him. Leonard, unless I tell you that you can. Do you remember, I feel like you can get one.
Okay.
Because I think you just watched this movie today. So I'm going to say you could probably get 2. So I'm going to need you to give me 3.
All right, just 6. Before, I just want to say we haven't mentioned Queen Latifah in it yet.
Oh, shit.
She was dope. And damn, she looked sexy as hell in this whole movie. I was like, damn, what's up?
When she does like the kind of lounge singer thing where she's doing like the big beaded thing with like the headdress, it's just so good.
Yeah, she looks so good.
Yeah.
Well, it's your fault, Leonard, because you said this was a movie just about white ladies. Queen Latifah has a bigger role than any person of color.
She is a powerful Black woman in this movie.
If You Be Good to Mama, which I thought was a song about sexual favors. Is it sex favors in the play and they just make it money in the movie?
Okay, so it's so funny. I was talking to my boyfriend about this right before I got on this podcast, and I'm like, I think Mama Morton is she's a lesbian, right? And like part of it is like they're good to her, like they're kind of like licking her pussy, right?
I think Mama is bisexual. I think Mama fucks everybody. I think she fucks. I don't know. Maybe she's lesbian, but I feel like she'll just do whatever she needs to do. That's also kind of just the vibe I feel like Mama. I don't know. Even when she's doing that number and she looks up at that guy and she gives him that eye, like when she says, like, I was just like, damn, Mama's just out here trying to get it.
I was just wondering if that was a thing that the movies, it's somewhat recent movie, but it is almost 20 years old, and they might have been a little scared. I don't know the Broadway version. If like We Give Her Money was supposed to be like a way of softening that they were doing sexual favors, but I don't know.
I think it's both. Maybe it's both.
Yeah, because not everybody can get money.
You be good to Mama, Mama be good to you has a certain inference that I thought I was picking up on. Leonard,
but also,
sorry. Yeah, go, John.
Speaking of gay undertones, I think the Richard Gere character, Billy Flynn, is also gay because the women are throwing themselves at him and he's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought I clearly my memory put it in there. I thought there was like a thing where when she was pregnant, like I knew the pregnancy was a ploy, but I thought like maybe she was going to hook up with him at some point, like in a sense of like we were going to give you a baby or something. But like I thought there might be some sort of romantic angle. There's not at all. So yeah,
no, she like literally offers to like, oh, I can't afford to pay you, but maybe I can think of another arrangement. And then he's like, okay, you got that out of your system. I need actual cash. I don't need this. Like, so I don't know. I'm just like, there's a lot of queer undertones. Also, the role that Christine Baranski plays as Mary Sunshine in the stage production is actually played by a man in drag. So there's like a whole thing there.
Understandable.
Yeah. Doing like a falsetto singing thing. Anyway, so there's like a lot of like queer undertones. But anyway, what were we talking about before that?
I Need Leonard, going back to the Cell Block Tango.
Oh, yeah.
And again, Leonard watched this movie, I'm pretty sure today, or you started it maybe yesterday. To give me three of the 6 words when each
Squish?
of the women
Squish.
Okay, he's just going for it. He's jumping right in. Squish is one, correct?
I can't. I can't. It's like there's a lot of letters. All right, hold on.
There's a lot.
I just remember
letters.
Squish because how could you not remember Squish? Shit.
So this scene, while Leonard is thinking, I'll give him some time. They intro the women in the Cell Block Tango. Catherine Zeta-Jones is one, and it's 6 stories.
I was so
6
confused. I was like, "Are these
their
their names?" And then I realized it was the men that they killed, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Because at first I was like, "What?" Anyways, I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, well, that's it. So they're introduced saying one word. Each of the 6 women has one word, and it's like the trigger word that describes their story. And they probably say it like 5 times each. Like they just go through it, and then they go like a little bit faster, and the rhythm picks up, and then they start singing.
And then
is one of them Jones? Is one of them Jones?
Jones?
No.
All right. You can bail out if you're just like, I'm not going to get a second one. I really thought that you could get 3. I was trying to give you as much credit. I was like, let her just watch this. John, can you finish? Can you round it out?
The phrase is pop, 6, squish, Cicero, lip shits.
There it is.
Lip shits. Cicero.
And that probably is. I love Reach for the Gun. I think that's like a catchier tune, but like, well, they're both catchy, but when you think of this movie, I think most people think of the Cell Block Tango.
It's the iconic, yeah. And you get like
the way
it's truly also like
and
the jail, like the bars, the way it's staged, and it is like the kind of like one of the big like ensemble numbers because a lot of it is solo stuff. So it is like kind of the big, musical like number that you think of when you think of jazzy showbiz musicals.
Yeah.
It was the jazz. It was the booze.
Who would you rather talk jazz with, Leonard? Catherine Zeta-Jones or Richard Gere? Who's a jazz aficionado?
Do I have to choose?
No, you don't. But John's going to have to choose, and we should go into our criteria so we can get along with it. We could probably talk about these movies forever until Leonard dies.
I feel like both of these are, for our first category, they both carry some weight.
Yeah, we're talking pop culture. I mean, this could be, what is memorable about these movies? How do these movies exist in the pop culture landscape?
Yeah, it's maybe harder to quantify because Chicago's also a stage play. So like,
that's true.
Like,
so a lot of things specific, like the phrase "all that jazz" it's hard to say that the movie popularized it. Yeah,
yeah. So, but it also won awards. It's riddled with stars. I feel like this was a big thing for like Queen Latifah. This normally wasn't a role that she normally played. And
I remember this, and I remember Bringing Down the House, which is a totally different movie that she made with Steve Martin. But like this, she was a movie star for this period of time. This was before she was like daytime talk show Queen Latifah, and after she was the musician.
Yeah,
I mean, she was still all of those things, but like this was like the period of time where she was in a lot of big movies.
I can't really say with the movie Chicago. I feel like represents pop culturally just in that sense besides those things. Pitch Perfect launched a lot of careers. We see a lot of those people's faces now. I don't know how big was Anna Kendrick before this. I mean, because she's like
she'd been in Up in the Air, and she'd been in a few things. Scott Pilgrim.
But she was like a child actor. Like she was in this you probably don't know this, when she was like 11 or 13, she was in this kind of like indie movie called Camp about a group of kids that go to a theater camp. And she's and she's like a child, like she's like 13, and she's so good in it when she's a child. but she actually was nominated for a Tony Award when she was like 11 years old.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
I did
She was
not
in-
know this.
Yes, she was in this musical called High Society as a child, and she was nominated for a goddamn Tony. She didn't win,
That's crazy.
but that's wild. And then she was in like Camp, and then like you said, like she was in Up in the Air and like Scott Pilgrim and like a couple little things. But I think this kind of like changed her from like
This may have been her first
supporting
like, leading
actor
role.
to like a leading role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it also launched her kind of like musical thing, because then she was in like the Last 5 Years, the musical, the Into the Woods musical, and then more Pitch Perfect movies, which I will say the other in my mind, the other Pitch Perfect movies blow chunks. That is to reference the first Pitch Perfect movie. The other ones blow chunks, and it's also being now turned into a series on Peacock starring Adam Devine. Anyway,
Really?
What?
yes, they've greenlit a Pitch Perfect series starring Adam Devine.
Is he
So
rising his role?
It's like a huge, he's being like Bumper. He's like, I don't know what the
the
whole,
least
like,
essential
plot is,
character.
but-
Again, he leaves the first movie before it ends.
Right.
He's just like, later I got a job with John Mayer, and he walks out.
Yeah, like I don't know if I don't really know the plot. Like I would assume he comes back and like he like is like the coach or something. It sounds like a Glee ripoff, but whatever. But anyway, and plus Leonard, to like the pop culture point of this movie, that Cup song became like number 6 on like the Billboard Hot 100. Like it like blew up. So like in this movie, like they made it for like 17 million and it raised like 100 and something odd $million. Like it was a huge success. So I don't know.
Yeah, Pitch Perfect has I feel, it's also more recent, so we can feel and see the cultural influence a lot more. But yeah, I feel like Pitch Perfect is way just.
I will say, if you ever hear people our age or younger break into just randomly or anything a version of "He Had It Coming," that's because they've seen the movie version of Chicago, and I do remember hearing that. But also you mentioned Glee, John, and I think that's a good point. This movie is sort of on the tail end. I don't know where if this supports or takes away from its pop cultural impact, but like Glee kind of kicked off this version, not just of like musicals, which had sort of dried up, like you weren't seeing a lot of them in movies on TV, but also that like jukebox musical, right? Like Mamma Mia kind of counts, but Mamma Mia is like it was already a Broadway musical and it was only the music of ABBA. But that idea of like potpourri, like let's just take whatever's popular on the top 40 and like make musicals of it, which Glee covers, made an entire thing. And I think Pitch Perfect kind of took the baton and did
I've
their own
never
thing.
seen an episode of Glee.
Neither have I, but
You guys.
This is a movie podcast, John. It's not a TV podcast.
That's fine. I've seen every episode of Glee, and I'm proud to say that I was a featured extra in the final season of Glee.
Yes, that's right.
Nice.
I was a Dalton Academy Warbler in the final season of Glee on several episodes.
Oh, several episodes. Hello. Hello.
So I'm very proud to say
Warbler. I'm afraid to ask.
I
what
know.
That is.
Watch out. It's like the all boys school.
Got it.
And the joke was that like the joke in the last season was that they were all like preppy boys and they were all like closet cases. They're like, I'm not gay. The whole time.
Did you get to wear one of your bow ties? John Potter has a lovely collection of bow ties that he's not wearing today, but
they're all the warblers wore like red long ties. So anyway,
gross.
Not a good
but yeah, Quinn, to your point though, I would like to make a point about Chicago, about this whole like pop culture thing, because the movie Moulin Rouge and Chicago came out back to back, you know what I mean? And Moulin Rouge is an example of a musical that took songs from pop culture and like reworked them and put them into a different setting of, you know what I mean? Like 1920s France. And then Chicago came the next year, and these like two big hits basically launched the resurgence of movie musicals. Like they weren't making movie musicals anymore. Like Chicago's the last movie musical, or the first movie musical to win and the Best Picture since 1968. So like we're talking like almost a 40-year dry spell of movie musicals, of like big, great movie musicals. So that being said, like it launched, like think of all the movies that came after it that were like Hairspray, Dreamgirls, Rent, Les Mis, like all of these big things that happened, I think, because of the critical success of these. Yes, exactly.
Aww.
And then Glee kind of like changed that and made it like this more of like what you said, like this pop culture thing for like younger people too. and then Pitch Perfect happened, and then like Hamilton happened, which then like I don't know, like I feel like it's like this kind of like trajectory
this whole Hamilton, that led to the resurgence of Broadway. Like,
totally.
I mean, what about like Wicked? People really love Wicked too, right?
Wicked came out in 2003, which would have been right after Chicago, or right after Chicago won the Oscar. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I would agree with you. Like, it's kind of like Chicago and Moulin Rouge, barely enough, are like kind of like the starting point of this like resurgence that was kind of like.
Have you seen Hamilton? Have you guys seen Hamilton?
I was about to say, we may as well talk about Hamilton, the biggest musical of the last 10 years. Yes, I
have not seen Hamilton.
Okay. No. I saw it when it came to LA, and but before then I had played like everybody else.
I've only heard like I was in a Lyft in Chicago a couple years back, and my Lyft driver, she was playing the Chicago soundtrack, and I heard like a song or two. Then that was it. That's all I've ever.
Well, it's on Disney Plus. It's a solid 2.5 hours if you want to give it a watch.
One day.
The original Broadway cast performing Hamilton.
Oh, okay.
It's good.
Well, I feel like it's a pretty good time. You know, we're talking about the modern day musicals. How well did this hold up? How well did these movies hold up? I feel like it's easier. Pitch Perfect came out like 9 years ago, so I feel like it holds up pretty well. The songs are, you know, from the time period. I still had a lot of fun. It maybe even was kind of cool. Like, oh man, I haven't heard these songs in a while. So it wasn't like too dated, but like just enough maybe. So that was fun.
If it's dated at all, it's just because of the songs that they used were so current. It's not
so
that they chose songs that you don't remember anymore, but it just sets you right where it was.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Like that's, I don't think that's good, or I don't think that's bad. I mean, I'll say, and I'm trying to think now, but like I still feel that Chicago, and I haven't seen all of them, but I feel like still like Chicago is still in this millennium the kind of gold standard for a movie adaptation of a musical. I'm trying to think of like I've seen some of Hairspray. I saw Les Mis. Like I saw In the Heights. I don't have the stage versions of most of these shows to compare them to, but just in terms of what's the better, more engaging, fun movie, I would still say Chicago. I think a lot of we just talked about chasing it.
Chicago,
I think a lot of movies still are.
Fully holds up, and I think you're right. Like it's kind of like this beautiful, like like a paragon of like, this is what a musical made into a stage or made into a film adaptation is like. This is like kind of a.
I kind of wish more movies would do it that way. You know,
right.
It's like, yeah, like you can just. There's fun about interacting with the environment. I think about like Spielberg's West Side Story is coming out.
Oh my god, I'm so excited! But yeah,
and like that's like you kind of need them like jumping off of the like in the back alleyways and the basketball hoops and the turns like the fire escapes and whatever. But I do also like the idea of like the action's happening here and then here's a stage, like just sort of dual, cutting between those two things and one's the same. But yeah, I think they both hold up fairly well. I don't know, unless you had any sticking points, Leonard, we can go on to our third category.
We could go on to our third category.
Famous category. Everybody's, we get letters, we get phone calls, everybody's asking about it. Was Luis Guzman in either of these movies, Leonard? Why are you laughing,
what? Surprisingly, he wasn't in either one of these movies.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have a good singing voice. He has a lovely speaking voice. He could be on John's competitive speech team, but I don't know if maybe he wouldn't have been able to sing.
I instantly have a spot for him in this movie, and that's
Pitch Perfect.
Pitch Perfect, and he could be one of the clef, those like the clef tones or tone.
Wait, are we talking about Louis Gossett Jr.?
No. Luis. Luis Guzman.
Like, Google
Luis Guzman. Guy from Officer and a Gentleman this whole time, and I got real confused. Okay.
Google Luis Guzman, John. He's just a character actor who's in a lot of movies, and if he was in one of ours, maybe we'd get extra credit or points. Leonard could probably use it, but unfortunately, I don't think he's in either of these films.
I don't even know who this person is.
Luisguzman.
You recognize him. You're going to say, oh.
I still can't.
Instantly, I think of Waiting. He's in Waiting. That's probably one of his bigger roles.
Okay, I've seen that.
He's in. Have you ever seen? He's.
Oh yes. Okay,
I knew the O was coming. Yeah.
Yes.
He's in a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson movies, but no musicals. I guess he should do a musical. I'd like to see a Luis Guzman musical.
That would be funny. I would see him as one of the Oh, they made a second Waiting? No.
Yeah.
No.
Still waiting.
Still Waiting.
Is that what it's called?
That's what it's called. It's literally what it's called.
That makes sense.
Oh yeah, Boogie Nights. That was like one.
Boogie Nights.
Yes.
Yes, I was thinking it was Boogie
Okay.
Nights. He's like holding the boom mic.
Yeah.
So we're sorry. We are casting him in both of these movies.
Yes, we're casting.
Yeah,
him in
just
both
for
these
fun.
movies.
You know, he's not in either of them. Unfortunately, neither of us can win this category. But
You know the one where it's like where Donald Faison and Lou Griglio or whatever his name is, when it's like the older dudes.
the old acapella group. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like
right.
he would. That's probably where he goes.
That scene just kind of happens in that movie. It was sort of like, hey, we want to get some older guys into it. But yeah, I like that scene in that movie.
Yeah, he would be hilarious in that.
That's perfect. That's exactly where he goes, Leonard. You nailed it.
Yeah.
I'm not about to take anyone's big role away. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's probably the same character type as a kind of John C. Reilly, but I'm not about to recast John C.
That's
Reilly
what
in this movie.
I was saying. That would be, for me, the role that makes the most sense. But yeah, I don't want to take it away from his Boogie Nights co-star, John C. Reilly.
Yeah, otherwise, you know, you can maybe make him like one of the jurors. There's not really anywhere else to put him. You could make him. No, you know what? It would be a very different take on the character. You could make him Dominic. You can make him McNulty, the guy that Renee Zellweger kills in the beginning of the movie. He could be that sleazy. I'm just sleeping with you because you think I can help your career.
Because the guy that she kills is like really
handsome.
hot.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense if it's like a less attractive man that she's been sleeping with purely for her like
career,
to boost her career. Yeah.
Which is usually the attractiveness quotient was too close to 1-to-1 in this movie. But if you put Luis Guzman, not to knock him, but you know,
no, but
you guys are
forgetting one key thing though. If he's cast in that role, then the movie doesn't happen because no one gives a fuck that she kills him.
Oh man, that's a good point.
Ooh.
No, wait, I thought of someone that he could be, and then I completely lost. I'm like, could he be? Never mind. I was gonna say like the defense attorney or whatever,
Yeah,
the prosecuting attorney, like the opposite Richard Gere. But like that's like
erroneous.
I think maybe instead of the kid, maybe he's the guy waiting on the papers with the innocent or guilty. Hey, get your paper. Like, he's innocent.
Just a little.
That would be funny if they had him be a newsie because those are usually boys. Let's get into stats because we could talk about Luis Guzman all day as well. I'm telling you, it's going to be a long.
You know, I hope Luis Guzman should be in the new West Side Story. He would have been great. Anyway.
Oh, he would be good in it. He should absolutely be a shark. I had to remember which nationality was which gang.
Sure.
Chicago made for $45 million, brought in $306 million worldwide. That is obviously a hit. I am also looking at, I believe it won 6 Oscars.
God damn.
And I'm looking at what for. It was Best Picture. Catherine Zeta-Jones won. It won for... Catherine Zeta-Jones won, and just bears mentioning Rob Marshall, the director, was nominated. Renee Zellweger was nominated. John C. Reilly was nominated. Queen Latifah was nominated. It also won for art direction, costume design, and film editing. And best sound. And so that's a pretty big footprint.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Rotten Tomatoes, 86%, 83% audience. So Leonard, the floor is yours.
Wow. Well, Pitch Perfect. Since you just gave us those numbers, 81% certified fresh from the critics, and then from the audience, it's 83%. A 7.1 on IMDb, and John said it earlier. It was a $17 million budget, and they made $115 million. I feel like, excuse me, for what this movie was, and like, you know, the time, I feel like that's a pretty big win. You know,
it is. No, totally,
for sure. I think it was like a surprise hit. Like you know what I mean? Like it definitely outplayed what people expected it to do.
I'm honestly kind of surprised that they even dropped 17 million to make this. I feel like that's kind of
because when I watch it, sometimes I'm like, oh, this is like a little low budge. But then again, like maybe some of the music rights alone were expensive, and like the
that's
actor fees,
most of the money
went.
Yeah. Because Anna Kendrick is great, but you're not paying her millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
Like there's no one huge,
especially 10 years ago. Yeah.
There was no one. Yeah. Like we said, it launched a lot of people's careers. So I don't think this was going to be as big as a hit as they thought it was.
So we find ourselves once again in our fifth criterion. What's the best musical? Now, John, you may know already, but you got to hear us out in our final arguments before you can.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question that's been burning in my brain like for the last couple of days? So and I want to make sure I got this right. On your previous episodes of this podcast, you've mentioned
Oh no,
that
he's
you
listened.
don't ever select movies made before 1984. Is that still a rule?
I mean, what even is the point, John? The cinema begins in 1984.
That's
I guess that's especially egregious for
reason
the
I'm
musical
perturbed
episode.
For the musicals, I'm like, all the best musicals were made in like the 50s and 60s, in my humble opinion. So I'm just like, you're kind of like you're cutting like the musical genre into like only a quarter of it is like actually available for this, like criteria.
That was an issue. We weren't allowed that. I would have chosen Willy Wonka, but I couldn't have.
I said you
because
could
was
bend it.
before
I've bent
19.
it once before.
He did say that I could bend it for this episode because he has bent it once before with Jaws, but yeah, we don't acknowledge movies.
Well,
before
it's just, listen, I've
1981.
only seen about 24 movies in my life. So, I mean, I'm just trying to like winnow it down to a specific period of time. And the idea is also, I think the idea initially was that Leonard and I were picking movies that kind of we grew up with. And certainly you can grow up with movies before 1984, but yeah, no, we don't acknowledge them. I mean, name a movie before 1984, just any movie.
Well, I would say my favorite musical, which is Cabaret.
What is that? Never heard of it.
Never
don't know what
it.
it.
Cabaret is a movie musical starring the great diva Liza Minnelli in her Oscar-winning role as Sally Bowles, and she is a cabaret singer in Berlin in the early 30s, kind of at the rise of Nazi Germany. And
Never heard of it.
It's just it's a slice of life about that time, about her life in that time, and like
Nazis.
her
What
friends.
are these?
It sounds like
that happened before 1984.
I don't know. I stopped reading history books before that time as well. It sounds like they should remake it. If it's really good and it's old, they should just remake it.
No, they should. It wouldn't have the same like panache. It's like Bob Fosse. It's like, and it's the same. Bob Fosse directed it. He's a famous choreographer, director. He also Cameron Ebb, who wrote the music to Chicago, wrote the music for this. It's just like a beautiful movie. And
it's a shame they were born at the wrong time.
Yeah, we'll have to take your word for it.
I mean, all the best musicals, Sing in the Rain, West Side Story, like
West Side Story, that's coming out this year.
They're all from the 50s and 60s. And also, when you mention A Star Is Born, you're for like
there's like four movies.
Well, there is four, but the best, like it's widely known, the best version is the Judy Garland version from like 1954. So it's like if you're gonna choose A Star Is Born, you should have chose that one. Anyway, well, I will get off my soapbox, but I'm just saying, you're like, really, for musicals, you're really giving me a slap in the face. Wow. And what I want is a pat on the ass.
Well said.
Thank you.
We'll have to. We'll think. We'll do a powwow. We'll think about if we want to change that rule, and then we'll ultimately decide that we don't. Leonard.
Quinn, it's an uphill battle. You can go first. These are our final arguments.
Okay.
I
feel just like the judge in Chicago.
We both reached for the pick. John, I didn't reach for my pick, actually. Leonard is going to, I don't know what Leonard's going to tell you. I know that Leonard knows he didn't really pick a musical. I know that maybe you come down on the side that, okay, let's say it qualifies as a musical. When people say like, what is a musical? Like, it's not really totally the genre. It's kind of a pastiche, which makes sense because a lot of the music that they use in Pitch Perfect is mashup. And I don't think that should be held against Pitch Perfect. I also just think like when you're making this decision, Leonard is going to try to blur the lines somehow. I'm not sure. He spent most of this podcast talking about how A Star Is Born would have been a better pick, which I agree with. I thought I would lose. Maybe. I was confident in my pick, but I thought maybe I could lose to A Star Is Born. I really don't see any way that John Yu, someone who respects musicals and musical theater, can pick that movie over Chicago, which, let's be real, it's not your favorite. You've said Cabaret is your favorite, but I think you have affection for it. I certainly, it stuck with me when I saw it way back when. And it's just let's not overthink this, I guess, is my pitch. It's a good musical. Everyone in it is good. It was awarded, it won Oscars. It made box office. Like it's an unassailable pick. And if Leonard had picked another movie like that, then I would say, listen, you just got to go with your preference. But I would go so far as to say you really can't pick Pitch Perfect over Chicago, John. And I think you know that. And I think that I think I made the smart pick. I don't think I pandered to anyone. I just went with what I liked. Leonard, I cede my time.
I would just like to mention, like, for most of your argument, you were like like shitting on his pick instead of really talking up yours, but that's fine.
We spent
Leonard
the whole
is-
time talking up the things I like about Chicago. I think
Okay.
they speak
That's
for
fair.
themselves.
That's fair.
I came into this episode sure that I was going to lose. Okay. I came into this episode just feeling like I was going to lose. But throughout this episode and talking about both these movies and hearing John's passionate history and love for musicals, I'm now realizing that Pitch Perfect was a great choice. This jukebox musical is a great movie. Okay. It's fun. I feel like this movie is kind of a movie where I could show my homeboys, be like, hey, we're going to watch this movie, and they would enjoy it. They would have fun. They could connect with it. And maybe that could be something that could spark something that they would want to watch more musicals. Chicago, great movie. It won fucking the Academy Award for Best Picture. Quinn, this is what he does. He chooses box office, big budget choices. Quinn actually has a connection to the movie Chicago. He saw it one time in the movie theater during the day with his grandmother and his mom, and he chose it for Best Musical. Pitch Perfect, I have watched multiple times. I've chosen to watch it multiple times. I had fun watching it. It was great. And, like Quinn said earlier, and I was like, damn, that's so true. Like the moment in the shower, just like them singing and that raw, real moment, just making me feel like a type of way that I normally don't feel. And that is, I feel like the feeling of just like joy and happiness, and me being me and Quinn being Quinn, we reject that. And I feel like musicals are happiness and they're fun. And I feel like that's what Pitch Perfect is. Like, and it might not be your like true definition of like a stage play, or was a stage like, a musical that was transformed into a movie, but I feel like it still fits the genre in some way, more so maybe in heart than actual, technical aspects. But I feel like Pitch Perfect is the fun movie. It's the more recent movie, a person like me that I can connect with more. So that's why I think it's the best musical.
Okay.
Well
John,
said.
floor is yours.
And this is when I deliver my result, my choice.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can drag it
how you
out as
came to
long
it.
or as short as you, however much you want to go into it.
Well, I will say I came in thinking like, oh, Pitch Perfect isn't really a musical, but like the more I thought about it, and the more we've talked about its like place in pop culture, and like not only like how it's launched careers, but it's kind of like become this thing of like a new musical kind of like renaissance thing is very important. Also, like it's had that Cup song. Is a perfect example of like it's grown and spread into like this thing that is now 3 movies and a TV show. And I do, like I said, when I talked about both these movies, I love both of these movies. They hold a special place in my heart. I will say I probably have seen Pitch Perfect several times more than Chicago, which like, maybe rewatchability is a little more on the Pitch Perfect side. I think they both have I think the music in Pitch Perfect is great. But I do think the music in Chicago, like every single song in that movie, there's always kind of like a dud song in a musical. And I would say Chicago has no dud songs. Every song is completely amazing. And every performance of that interpretation of that song on film is completely thought out. And it's a fully realized vaudeville performance of that song. And I just think that's like so clever, and the way that it's edited and the cinematography is like so beautiful. And then if you get to performances, I think like 2 great ensemble casts, like kind of a cast of like up and coming, like who are these young people, and a cast of celebrities. And I will say, like, I think about this a lot. Like, I'm not necessarily like a Richard Gere fan. I'm not a huge Catherine Zeta-Jones fan. I'm not a huge Renee Zellweger fan, and I'm not a huge Queen Latifah fan. But all of them in this movie are so good, which just like goes to show how great of a movie this is. So, while it pains me to say, I really have to go with my gut, and I give the award for Best Musical to Chicago.
Oh, thank God. Makes me want to sing, Leonard.
Yeah.
I thought I almost pulled
I
it
thought
off.
you almost had it too. Jesus Christ,
Man.
why was that close? Oh.
But yeah, I can't
You can't go
not
against
chose.
Chicago.
I can't go against Chicago. It's just so. It's like I keep saying,
no.
like on
You know what?
film.
I'm just gonna have to be.
Leonard's not going to be
adaptation.
angry at you, John. He knows he fucked up.
No, I'm just gonna have to be quicker than draw. Quinn always just chooses a movie quick first, and he gets the.
Oh yeah, if I waited, you
would-
might have picked Chicago.
I would
Fuck
know.
no.
I've never seen
like-
Chicago, so I can.
I've never been to Chicago. I assume this is what it's like.
You've never been to Chicago?
No.
Wild.
Really?
Yeah, I've never been to
That's
Chicago. Is that
amazing to
crazy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they won't let me in.
Go in the summertime though. It's
Yes,
just a
go
little
in the
cold
summer.
and
I
windy.
just assume there's a bunch of lady killers out there, and I don't want to get hurt.
I know,
John-
and you're engaged to be married, so you could have a wife
It's
that's
true.
about to stab you.
It's true.
I will say, if you didn't have the 1984 rule and Leonard had picked like a West Side Story, this would have been a real Sophie's choice for me.
John,
I
if we
would've-
didn't have
it
that rule, all things considered, West Side Story is my favorite musical. That's what I would have picked. But
Oh,
I was
okay.
like,
I've
let's
never
keep
seen
it
West
modern.
Side Story, so
Okay.
But your
Well,
favorite's
I'm just
Cabaret?
saying, like, if there was like older musicals that
Yeah.
we could have like chosen from,
We really
this would have been Chicago versus like an old like Hollywood, like an old Hollywood
you
film.
wouldn't have
would
been able to choose.
hard.
Mm,
I would have
yeah.
I would have really had to like probably I wouldn't have gone in with a preconceived notion. I would have really been like, I'm just gonna listen to what they say and make
Yeah.
a decision in real time. But this I was like I was kind of already leaning
Yep,
Chicago.
yep.
Yeah, of course you were, because
Of course.
you're an intelligent person. And
I didn't choose. I didn't choose
understand
a
when you're
musical,
given two
and I
choices and
chose.
one of them
I
is
changed
bad.
my choice a couple times. So, all
Jay,
right,
I
where can the
appreciate
people
the
find you,
choice.
John?
Yeah,
where can the
John-
people find you, John?
Yeah. I'm on all social medias as John Potter 6, the number 6.
Because there's a lot of
JOHN.
John Potters out there, so you want
There
to make sure you
are.
find the right one.
I mean, I wanted to just be John Potter, but then I had to go all the way to number 6 before I found, an available handle. So John with an H, John Potter 6 on all social media. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and John, just a fun fact about John is, didn't you meet up with another John Potter on so like you just it was
Yes.
like there was like a Facebook group of all the John Potters and you just met up? What an insane thing to do.
Not quite. Well, but so I just like this other guy named John Potter messaged me or followed me on Twitter, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I'll like look at his profile, and then like I followed him back just for like shits and giggles, and then we like started like DMing and like Twitter interacting, and he's like British, and he's like exactly we're very much the same age, like exactly a year younger than me. He is also like a theater nerd, and he was like in LA visiting just like on a US tour, and we like got brunch.
It sounds like a screenplay.
He was
Sounds like
lovely.
a murder.
We're Facebook friends. We still like chat
John
sometimes.
Potter.
John Potter.
I'll
Yeah.
also say we're wrapping up here, but if you have Hulu, if it's still on there, or just the means to seek it out online, go and check out John Potter's episode of the ABC game show Card Sharks, and you will get a real taste of what John
I'm
Potter is like.
jealous. I
Yeah.
tested for that show.
Leonard?
And I did, and I was
Really?
like, I wanted to be on it, man. I tested for
Yeah.
it.
Leonard, watch the episode and then see how jealous you are. This has been so much fun. It's a blast talking about musicals with you, John. Leonard and I were unsure how we would fill the time, but you were our Sherpa through this.
I could.
Yeah,
I
that was.
could
It was
have- I could keep
I was
talking about
honestly worried about this one, but this was a lot of fun. It was great.
So we will be back next week with a new prompt and a new guest. But until that time, see you in the cinema. I should sing it that way. John, do you want to sing that for me? That's my going out. See you in the cinema. You want to make that a little ditty?
it. See you in the cinema.
Perfect.